Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about the Tinder swindler. I'm going to be talking about the red flags that came up, the things that were ignored, perhaps why they were ignored, and what we can do to prevent ourselves from being swindled by somebody that we meet on Tinder. Now, what I would like to say is that this is not about victim shaming, blaming anybody. It's not about blaming online dating apps. You can meet a complete and utter toxic, I was gonna swear then, toxic character online, in real life, pretty much anywhere. And really it's on us to use this documentary, I feel, as a great big fat warning sign and a wake-up call rather than as something negative. I actually think that the women on that documentary are brave for coming forward. They'll know already, they will have been prepared for the fact that some people are going to label them as gold diggers, some people are going to label them as stupid, and some people are going to be nice and label them as unfortunate people who got wrapped up in an absolute sociopath's career. Like, for any of you who haven't seen it, this is about a guy who goes onto Tinder to rob people. So let's get started. Now, the documentary starts off with Cecily. Most of what I talk about today is based on her because I feel like it's the easiest person to follow and the easiest one to spot the red flags in whilst you watch the show. So if you've watched it already, maybe go back and look and see what I see, or maybe you're already ahead, like with me, and you've seen all of this stuff already and you think it's really clear. This is like the most obscene, elaborate, sophisticated catfishing scam that I've ever heard of. Now, the documentary opens off with Cecily explaining how she views love and relationships, and it's quite clear to me that whether she knows about it or not, that the documentary wants to set up this view of this person as being somebody who is very, very romantic. Like, she desperately wants love, and many of us out there would sit and empathize and understand why she might be like that. We've all dreamt about maybe finding our Prince Charming, and we've all watched Disney movies and thought, oh, that's lovely, I'd love that to happen to me. We've all had like slightly, maybe like a little bit fanciful ideas about love and relationships. And actually Cecily comes across as what we might call a romanticist. Now, romanticists typically have unrealistic expectations about love, and they have a really strong idea about the type of person that they want to date, and they might have really fanciful ideas about how love might be. And now we can blame so many different things. I think it's on us to educate ourselves, but you know, we're not helped by the way that we're brought up, the stories that we're told, the Disney films that we watch, the rom-coms that we see. All of this stuff helps to feed into and create this romanticist character within ourselves. So I was a bit like, oh no, like from the start, like this woman doesn't have realistic expectations about love. She's talking about how, you know, it is difficult to find Prince Charming in real life. Like, she says that, and it's like, well, because he doesn't exist. Unless you're Cinderella, he doesn't exist. So when a guy turns up and he's like doing all of these things that are like fantastic, I think that in itself is a bit of a red flag. I mean, they met on Tinder. Tinder's not even like renowned for being the, you know, relationship app. So it surprises me that that's where he was even operating, really. Like, I mean, if he was a billionaire, would he have been on Tinder? Like, I don't know. I feel that the people that are that wealthy are probably not on Tinder, and maybe hiring matchmakers or going down a very exclusive route to find relationships, not on a free app. So I guess that could be a little bit of a red flag, but I don't want to be harsh about this because there's loads of people that use Tinder that are of all different types of backgrounds. So we could let that one slide and think this isn't so bad. You know, she met him on Tinder. She's only just going to go on a date with him. And she said at first that she was going to go on a date with him, have a coffee and then leave. That's not what happened though, is it? What happened was, it seems to me like she didn't have boundaries in place ahead. I don't know this, But if she had a really strong boundaries about what is okay and is not okay on a first date, would she have got onto a private jet with him and flown out of the country? I feel that safety is the most important thing. Like, more important than love. Your safety is more important than finding love. Taking that kind of risk, you could land in really tricky, bad, murky, awful waters. And she ignored that what her friends were saying to her, because her friends did say that they were concerned. This doesn't sound okay, you might get kidnapped. Like, she had feedback from her friends and she chose to ignore it. Now, why she chose to ignore it, it's difficult for me to say. But what she did say at one point, which really raised the alarm bells for me, was that she likes to feel nervous, and that when she's nervous around someone, that's when she knows it's something special. Nervousness and spark, as you might call it, or chemistry early on, is not a sign that this is something special. This is simply a sign that you're attracted to somebody. There is nothing more to it than attraction. And then what happens when we are attracted to somebody is that our brains release neurotransmitters and hormones that make us become quite irrational with our decision making. And you can see that in this documentary, that the decisions that she makes are like quite risky and irrational. So she flies across the country, which, you know, most people would say maybe don't do that on a first date. Like, I think we could all agree with that. And then she sleeps with him, which further creates a connection and a bond with this guy. What this guy has done is quite ingenious, really. He has put her into situations that she's not normally in, that are extremely pleasant. How fabulous for our brains to be suddenly doused in the dopamine of all the rewards of this lavish, fantastic lifestyle. So what's happened here is he's met her in a lovely hotel, an environment she's not used to, and then he has transported her, made her feel special, transported her to another fantastic hotel, no doubt, in a private jet. All of this stuff is conducive to creating spark and chemistry. The minute you're out of your comfort zone, the minute you're out of your normal mundane life, is when you're more likely to feel spark with people. It might not even be true, genuine spark. It's the excitement of what's going on. She was talking about how great it all was, how she was taking pictures of things. She wasn't really talking about him as a person. She loved the fact that he wore a suit. She loved the image. It was all the superficial things that she mainly talked about. She did talk about the connection, so I'm not going to say that it was just all of the smoke and the mirrors, as we might say, that she was just wowed by, but there was a lot of talk about how impressed she was by this guy's lavish lifestyle, and how she was a small town girl and that his lifestyle was completely different. Now this in itself, this is so dramatic, this in itself is, from a matchmaking perspective, a red flag as well. So if you're looking at two people and you're matchmaking them, you look at their lifestyles and their backgrounds, and these are two people with completely different, she said this, it's not me just saying it, completely different lifestyles and backgrounds. So the odds of them forming a long-term relationship that is successful are slimmer than two people who come from a similar background. They had different religions, they were from completely different countries, they had probably had completely different upbringings had he been even real. Like, this is the thing, right, I'm talking about this guy as if he's real, but like an actual billionaire. The odds of somebody who's born into billionaire status having loads in common with somebody who comes from a more modest background are relatively slim, so it's an unusual match in a way. Bit of a red flag. Then of course he does the classic narcissistic strategy of love bombing her. He does everything that women want, really, you know, the flowers, the kind words, he was attentive, he was messaging her, all of these like romantic gestures. On the second date, he asked her to be his girlfriend. This is a massive red flag. What guy in his right mind wants to be in a relationship with somebody on the second date, especially when you are a billionaire? Like, surely a billionaire is going to be a bit cautious about the people that they let into their circle. Surely a billionaire is going to maybe care on some level of what her intentions are. This is a guy that's not vetting you. Like, for me, I'd be like, why is this guy like so keen on me? This is a bit too much too soon. But Cecily had already run away and had already started to experience all of those chemical reactions that occur when you're in lust with somebody, because of the pace of the relationship was far too fast from the very, very first date. And then something really interesting happened, is that he obviously had sex with her, and then she learned something about him, about his vulnerabilities. She saw, he didn't tell her, she saw scars on his back and inquired about them, which led him to be all vulnerable, which intensified the way that she felt about him. She felt sorry for him. She wanted to be there for him. He was suddenly the victim, and she was there to patch up his wounds. Now, this is really classic. Like, she's probably a really highly sensitive, empathic person. And then because of this, she's not able to see that he's manipulated the situation. He probably knew she'd see the scars. He probably pre-planned the whole thing. And then she's looking at him and going and thinking like, this poor guy, this is awful, because that's what we would think, right? Why would she be thinking, oh, this guy's created this whole thing, he's a complete con artist? Like, because unless you're also evil, it's hard to see the evil in others. If you're not a liar, it's much harder for you to envisage that someone else is lying. It's harder to spot it because it's not a trait that you have. She could be the loveliest person on the planet. The loveliest people out there in the world are not looking for the bad in people. That's the truth. She was just swept away by this guy who happened to turn up matching the idea that she had in her head about love. I mean, that's sad. That's like so sad for her to have all these dreams and these hopes about relationships, and for a guy to turn up and to use that as a weapon against her, to use her naivety and her sweetness as a weapon. That's how I see it. I don't see it as, oh, she's a massive gold digger. Like, I'm not sure gold diggers are on Tinder. Like, you're not doing a good job as a gold digger if you're on Tinder, to be quite honest with you. Anyway, then after this fantastic rapid first date and him asking her to be his girlfriend on the second date, he very quickly said, move in with me. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Again, this is absolute, like, this is not how secure people operate. This is not how healthy relationships should move. Yes, some people do move really, really fast and get into a healthy relationship. I'm not saying it never happens, but what I am saying is that it's nearly always wiser to move a little bit slower than that. If you're gonna be with somebody for the rest of your life, going a bit slower is not going to hinder you. Saying to somebody, you know what, I've really enjoyed our first date, but I don't feel comfortable getting onto a private jet, that isn't going to put them off. If anything, that should make them like you more, because they can see, oh, she's not so impressed by this. And also, if he was, as he was, a narcissist, he might give up on the game a little bit if he realizes that she's not so easy to manipulate. But she was very open to be swept off her feet. And so she was. Another red flag that I just forgot about was when she saw his picture had changed on Tinder. If your picture has changed on Tinder, I'm pretty sure that the only reason why you would change your picture on Tinder is because you're using Tinder. So this is once again something that he was able to convince her otherwise of, and then she's swept aside, because we want to believe in the fairy tale. If we're a romanticist, we want to believe in the fairy tale, so that is what happened, in my view. Ultimately, this was a guy who was extremely good at conning people. Pernilla, who's the second person featured in the documentary, also stated that he knew all about the diamond industry. She did Google search him. She didn't Google image search him, which is, by the way, a good thing to do, is to Google image search somebody, but also never just believe everything you see online. Don't just believe everything that people tell you. Pace this thing slower and learn about someone over time. And don't give your money to people, because what happened is this guy is building trust and rapport with people, spending money, and then you feel like in some way that you maybe owe him something. They didn't say that, but I feel like at a deeper level, if someone treats you really, really well and spoils you, that maybe you might feel like, yeah, I could give him a bit of money, like on a deeper level, maybe not conscious, but it's like that's the whole game. And then you also think that they do have money, so you send them money. Like, it blew my mind, that documentary. Like, let me know what you thought of the documentary. Let me know what you think about my views, or what you saw, what red flags came up for you when you were watching it. What do you think this would happen to you? Do you know anyone that's been through something like this? Like, I have had friends who have been catfished, but because I tell them to Google search the image, it's harder for someone to catfish you, but it could still happen. People can tell you anything about themselves. It's over time that we learn the reality of what makes somebody tick. So I've got a little list of what the key takeaways for me are from this documentary. First one is to seek to educate yourself about relationships and dating, and on what is healthy and unhealthy in a relationship. Secondly, I'd like you to set boundaries before you begin to date, because when we get into that chemistry zone of like really fancying someone and you're in the passionate stages of love, logic goes out of the window. So if you have strong boundaries in place already that you live by, it's less likely that you can get tricked in this type of way. Third, Google image search. When you're going to meet somebody, do your due diligence, Google image search, but no matter what you find online, get to know the person. Like, get to know them. Knowing somebody, calling them your boyfriend after a month, you don't know them, you don't owe them anything, and you shouldn't be in a position where you feel like, I've got to give money. Why didn't this guy, so I'm really going off on one, why didn't he have someone else to turn to? That's my first thought, would be, I'm in a really new relationship with him. Why hasn't he got a support system? He's supposedly a billionaire. Why doesn't he have systems in place that can help him with this situation? Because this clearly has been an issue in the past, or, you know, something's not right here. This is like so fishy. My fourth one is listen to your friends. I don't mean listen to all the dating advice that your friends ever give you, because sometimes I think our friends do give bad dating advice. But when your friends are concerned about your safety, you should be concerned about your safety. Our good friends only have our best interests at heart. Pace your relationships more slowly. The slower you move, in my view, the better, because it will weed out toxic characters, and good people will stick around if you have strong boundaries and are pacing slow. As long as you're not being completely aloof and it makes logical sense that you're behaving the way that you behave, this is not going to drive away anybody that's good. It will only drive away the wrong ones. But the biggest takeaway I feel from this documentary is that your safety, and I'm not just talking about your physical safety, but your emotional safety as well, is the most important thing. And it's the thing that you have control of. So put that first, put that above finding love. Also, as a little side note, I do think it's a bit strange when somebody calls themselves the Prince of Diamonds. Like, even if you were the Prince of Diamonds, like, would you say it? Like, I feel like it's very, I mean, it's just narcissistic, isn't it? Which is essentially probably what we're dealing with this guy. Thank you so much for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I would literally love to know your views on this documentary, on what your key takeaways were, and whether you saw any red flags that I've missed. Anyway, have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.